So, in Legacy of Terror, Carl Kolchak investigates a series of murders, and the similar element between them is that the victims have had their hearts ripped out. There's this football player, a police officer, so on and so forth, and there's this weird flute being played, and some people in some sort of tribal costumes who appear to be the culprits of these murders. And this is one of the ones where at first it's like, well, Kolchak's investigating granted, as perhaps a serial killing, and there's multiple killers and all this sort of stuff. But it's all very human and real. At first, it seems like there's no supernatural element, but of course there is. But initially, that's the deal. At the time, there's some sort of convention that Vincenzo's attending, and expects Carl to be there. And of course, he's late. But then he hears about the police band radio, and he he just wants to go chase murderers and stuff. And it seems highly unlikely that he'd be the guy to give a speech before. I can't even remember. What was the convention? I guess Vincenzo won an award for his operations. Whatever it was, I don't even remember. So, well, the murders are happening, and they don't have any heart. So, of course, this captures Kolchak's interest immediately, But, of course, the police don't like him there. The police captain doesn't want him there, so on and so forth. So he's got to sneak around. And this involves the hotel where the convention's taking place. So, hey, what are the odds? Suddenly, Eric Estrada shows up. It turns out he's, I don't know, on the board for the hotel or something like that. But he shows up with his harem. Just walking around like a rock star, all full of himself. Stuff like that. And there's this woman there who, I guess she's being honored or something. And I think Kolchak was supposed to be assigned to tell her story, as she was supposed to be the first woman to go into combat or be allowed to be in a combat role within the military, something like that. And but of course, Kolchak just wants, hey, what's these murders about, and all that sort of stuff. Well, as it turns out, that woman becomes the next victim, and oh no, what's going on? And then hey, well, what great luck that it all comes together for Kolchak and the convention and what. So anyway, same old thing, he sneaks into this and he starts to find more elements of the costumes and whatnot. And then there's this sarcophagus of a mummified mummy in there. And of course, oh boy, what could all this concern in that? But eventually catches on to it that Eric Estrada is this guy who has literally been living quite the life, as the rock star life, and with his sexy girls that accompany him and all this stuff. Well, it turns out the deal he made to get that life is for 1 year, and at the end of it, he has to sacrifice himself to this Aztec cult. So that's who the people dressed up in feathers and everything, and including the girls that he's banging and whatnot. And they got to perform this sacrifice. So they needed these earlier hearts out of people who were in the best peak shape, young, and all that sort of stuff. And then the final sacrifice has to be a willing participant, apparently, in the cult, for the purposes of, I guess, enacting the ultimate apocalypse or something like that. I couldn't quite catch on to what it was, but the idea is that this happens quite a bit over the years. And at midnight, it turns out the mummified corpse is the old leader of the cult, and he comes back to life. But leading up to that, they're in where were they? They're in a stadium or something, where they're going to perform the ceremony. And Kolchak sort of crashes the party. And but he's able to talk Eric Estrada into, man, you really don't want to do this. And just before the knife is brought down to cut his heart out, he says, the hell with this, and he gets off the table and runs away. And a lot of people are chasing him down and say, "Oh no, we got to perform the ceremony," and all this stuff. And Kolchak, they forget about him. He falls down and he's grabbing his stuff, his camera, and then suddenly, well, the mummy's alive, and it comes after Kolchak because it needs a heart, and it attacks him, but there's only a certain amount of time for it to be alive again, and it doesn't get its heart, so it collapses, and it's just an old stinking mummy again, and that's the end of it, you know. So I guess had he gotten Erik Estrada's heart, that would have been the end of the world, or the dawn of a new era that ruled by the Aztec gods or something. I don't know, but fortunately, Kolchak was there to avoid that. So, you know, it's an interesting deviation, rather, you know, from just a basic monster, where ultimately the monster is, you know, this mummy or whatnot, but it's the cult itself, and they're believing in it, and they want this to happen, and that sort of thing, and they've been going around murdering these people for this particular date and time with this guy they've convinced, look, you're going to live the best life you've ever had for 1 year. You're going to have these beautiful supermodels as your girlfriends and all this money. You're going to, you know, live like a rock star. But at the end of it, we're going to have to cut your heart out. What do you say? And so he took the deal, because at first, hey, it's great, you know, and he's got all these babes and everything like that, and he's well-to-do and a lot of fun. But at the end, oh boy, he had to pay his debt to the cult. And one has to wonder if he was like brought up into it and all this sort of thing. Otherwise, it's like, hey, buddy, could hey, I'll offer you a multimillionaire lifestyle for 1 year, and then you got to die at the end of it. Are you in? So, in the end, he wasn't. He decided, hey, you know what? Never mind, and ran off. And of course, once again, does Kolchak have anything? I mean, I suppose, you know, it was a bit of a mess having that mummy that's God knows how long, how old, you know, hundreds of years, I guess. And there he is in this stadium. Kolchak, did you steal that? You know. And don't know what became of Erik Estrada. He ran away, so I don't know if they caught up with him. And what would be the point of hunting him down and killing him at this point? Because, well, you know, it was supposed to have happened at that moment, at that date, and that hour, and well, it didn't. So apparently this cycle happens, I don't know, every couple of 50 years or so, and the mummy, I guess they'll put it back in its sarcophagus, and I doubt that the cult was rounded up, so I suppose they could pass it down to their successors, and in 50 years they'll try again with some other idiot. And there you go. I know. Probably should have smashed the mummy all to pieces or something like that, but hey, there's another story that no one's going to believe, and it's just in the files of Kolchak's, you know, cassette tapes. Because the way he turns down stories, and well, you got to, because in between episodes, he's got to be doing boring, mundane stories. Here he thought, oh, it's a series of murders. I got to do that. And of course, there is a supernatural element to it. So anyway, there you go. A Kolchak episode with Erik Estrada before he became Poncherello from Chips. Yeah.